The planet Virex was burning. From orbit, the once blue world now looked like a wound, bright red fires cutting across its surface. The Krell swarm, a hive race known for never leaving survivors, had arrived. The sky was full of enemy ships, their black hulls covering the stars like a storm. Every city, every defense outpost was falling. Inside the Virexi council chamber, alarms screamed as dust fell from the ceiling. Commanders shouted over each other, trying to hold what was left of their forces together. "We've lost the southern shields," one soldier cried. "The Krell are landing in the capital," shouted another. At the center of the chaos, High Chancellor Ralvin stood silent, his silver eyes fixed on the holomap. Red dots, enemy signals, spread like blood across the surface. "How many ships remain?" he asked quietly. "None," came the answer. "Our fleets were destroyed in orbit. We have only ground troops left." Ralvin took a deep breath. He knew what that meant. Virex was doomed. "Send the distress call," he said. "To everyone. To all allied worlds." The comms officer hesitated. "Sir, no one will answer. They fear the Krell." "Send it anyway," Ralvin ordered. "Even if no one listens." The officer nodded and activated the beacon. A soft hum filled the room as the signal left the planet, a final cry for help, sent into the cold dark of space. Hours passed. Outside, the Krell advanced without mercy. Their ships bombarded the last defense lines, and their insect-like troops crawled across burning cities. Ralvin stood by the window, watching the end of his world. He thought of the other races, the Arkan, the Zorath, the Loom, once proud allies of the Virex. But now, all silent. None wanted to risk the Krell's wrath. "They won't come," whispered General Thel. "We are alone." The Chancellor nodded slowly. "Then we die as Virexi." The command center trembled as a blast hit nearby. Lights flickered. Smoke filled the air. "Sir, the Krell fleet is entering final bombardment position," a soldier shouted. Everyone in the chamber went quiet. They knew this was the end, and then the comms console beeped. At first, no one noticed. It was soft, almost like static. Then the sound came again, sharp, rhythmic. The comms officer frowned and turned to his screen. "What is that? A reflection?" "No," he whispered. It's a response." Every head turned toward him. "Repeat that," Ralvin demanded. Someone answered the signal. The room froze. "Put it through," Ralvin said. The speakers hissed with static. For a long moment there was nothing. Only the faint crackle of broken transmission. Then a voice came through, cold, calm, human. "This is Fleet Command of the Terran Alliance. Hold your position." The words echoed in the chamber. The officers stared at each other. For a second no one moved or spoke. Did it say Terran Alliance?" General Thel asked quietly. "Yes," the comms officer said, his voice trembling. "Humans." The Chancellor's eyes widened. "Humans? That's impossible. They left galactic space decades ago." But the signal was real, and still it continued. "This is Captain Mara Voss of the Terran 7th Fleet. Virex, your call for aid has been received. We are en route. Ita, 3 minutes. 3 minutes." Ralvin's breath caught in his throat. He looked at his generals. None of them could believe it. The humans. "They're coming." Outside, the Krell ships adjusted their aim, ready to fire their final volley. 3 minutes isn't enough," General Thel whispered. The Chancellor smiled faintly. "If humans said 3 minutes, we'll hold for 3 minutes." They braced for impact. The Krell opened fire. Beams of white energy struck the city, tearing towers apart. The ground shook. Debris rained from the ceiling, shields failing. Shouted a technician. "Hold them!" Ralvin commanded. "Hold!" The countdown echoed in his mind. 2 minutes. Another blast shook the building. Smoke poured through the vents. 1 minute. The Krell ships grew closer, their black hulls blotting out the sky completely. And then, the stars returned. Without warning, space above Virex rippled like waves on water. Blue light burst across the heavens. One by one, massive ships emerged from hyperspace, sleek, angular, covered in steel plating that glowed faintly blue. Each ship bore the same symbol, a silver circle with a burning star at its center. The Terran Alliance. "By the void," whispered Thel. They really came. The human fleet spread out in perfect formation. Hundreds of warships, silent and steady, facing the swarm. On the open channel, Captain Voss's voice returned. "Virex Command, We have you on scope. Defensive grid active. Prepare for engagement. Before anyone could reply, the human ships opened fire. White-blue plasma lances shot across space, cutting through the Krell lines like fire through paper. Their massive dreadnoughts shattered under precise bombardment. The Krell swarm broke apart, their attack faltering for the first time. On the ground, Virex soldiers looked up, watching the sky burn with human firepower. In the command center, Ralvin stood silent, watching through the glass. "Who are they?" Thel whispered. Ralvin's voice was quiet, almost reverent.
"The ones who never forgot." Outside, the Terran fleet pushed forward, unstoppable.
For the first time in a century, the galaxy would remember the name humanity. And for the first time in his life, Ralvin felt hope. The humans had come, and with them, the unexpected war had begun. The skies above Virex burned with light. Where moments ago there had been darkness and despair, now a wall of brilliant blue fire cut across the heavens. The Terran Alliance fleet had arrived, and they came ready for war. Inside the Virexi command center, stunned officers watched the holographic display. 1,000 small red dots, Krell ships, flickered and vanished one after another, as human plasma beams tore through them with cold precision. The room was silent except for the deep rumble of explosions far above. General Thel was the first to speak. Are we winning?" No one answered. It didn't feel real. High Chancellor Ralvin leaned forward, staring at the data feed. "Patch me through to their command ship," he said. Static filled the comms before a voice, calm, professional, came through once again. "This is Captain Mara Voss of the Terran 7th Fleet. Virex Command, confirm your survival." Ralvin took a deep breath. "This is Chancellor Ralvin of Virex, Captain Voss. We received your message. We never thought you'd come." "We received your signal," she replied. "And as long as humanity stands, no ally calls for help alone." Those words echoed in the chamber like a promise. The human fleet, the Terran ships moved like living steel, vast carriers, destroyers and dreadnoughts gliding in formation with terrifying grace. Each bore marks of old battles, scars of forgotten wars. They didn't look new. They looked experienced, built by a species that had survived extinction more than once. The Krell didn't understand fear, but they understood loss. And as the first human salvos tore through their leading vessels, the swarm began to hesitate. Then came the next phase. "Deploy the drop teams," Captain Voss commanded. From the massive carrier TAS Vanguard, hundreds of black pods launched into orbit, trailing blue fire as they fell through the atmosphere. The Virexi soldiers below watched them streak across the burning sky, meteors of hope descending from heaven. One officer whispered, "Are those bombs?" Thel shook his head, eyes wide. "No, those are soldiers. The drop on the surface." The Krell forces were advancing through the ruined streets of Virex Prime. Massive insect-like beasts moved between crumbling towers, cutting through the last pockets of Virexi resistance. Then the air roared. The pods slammed into the ground, cracking stone and sending shockwaves through the city. From within, armored figures emerged, tall, powerful, and silent. Terran Marines. Their armor shimmered with faint blue light, the surface alive with kinetic shielding. They carried heavy rifles, energy blades, and the calm, precise confidence of trained killers. The first Marine looked around, assessing the battlefield. His voice came through the comms, cold and focused. "Vanguard 1, boots on the ground. Area secure. Beginning counteroffensive." In less than a minute, the humans were moving, fast, efficient, coordinated. Krell soldiers charged toward them, screeching. The Marines didn't even flinch. Their weapons barked light, bursts of plasma that turned the swarm into ash. A Virexi squad, trapped behind rubble, watched in disbelief. One of them, a young soldier named Terran, peeked from cover. "They fight like machines," he whispered. His commander shook his head. "No, machines don't fight with anger." And indeed, and behind every burst, every strike, there was purpose. Every human moved as if this war was personal. The first Alliance hours later, the battle over Virex began to shift. The Krell fleet was breaking apart, their ground forces retreating under the unstoppable advance of human and Virexi soldiers working together. In the command center, Ralvin received another transmission from Captain Voss. "Chancellor Ralvin, orbital dominance achieved. We're sending med ships to evacuate civilians. Your planet will hold." Ralvin's voice cracked with emotion. You've saved us, Captain. Why? Humanity left the Council years ago. You could have ignored our signal like the others. There was a pause before she answered. Because we remember what silence costs. Her voice carried weight, pain. Every human in that fleet had lived with a story they never forgot. Long ago, she continued, a colony of ours called Arcadia sent a distress call. No one came. Not even our friends. We buried 500,000 lives that day. Humanity learned a lesson. Never again. Ralvin stood quietly, his throat tight. He understood now. This wasn't just rescue. This was vengeance against indifference itself. The human presence as dawn broke over Vire. The night sky over Virex Prime was no longer dark. It burned with light, streaks of plasma fire and the glow of thousands of engines. The Terran Alliance fleet had taken position above the planet, forming a protective wall between Virex and the approaching Krell reinforcements. Down below, the Virexi soldiers stared upward, seeing the heavens filled with warships larger than anything they had ever imagined. Each human vessel moved with purpose. No wasted motion, no panic. Only calm precision. They looked like predators who had done this before. The calm before fire inside the human flagship Vanguard. Captain Mara Voss stood at the center of the command bridge. Her eyes were fixed on the tactical display, hundreds of red dots advancing through space. Enemy fleet size? She asked quietly. Approximately 4,000 Krell vessels, her tactical officer replied. Their swarm carriers are holding formation behind the main assault line. Voss nodded slowly. Standard Krell tactic. They send the weak first to draw our fire. Then they bring the hives. She turned to her crew. They think we're like the others. They think we'll break. Her voice hardened. We show them they're wrong. A chorus of responses echoed across the bridge. Yes, Captain. The humans didn't raise their voices. They didn't cheer. They simply prepared, professionals facing the impossible without fear. Virex command on the surface, Chancellor Ralvin watched the human fleet's movements on the holoscreen. The glowing blue icons of the Terran ships moved like a living machine, each perfectly coordinated. General Thel approached. Do you believe they can win? Ralvin hesitated. I don't know, but I believe they will die trying. He looked toward the sky again, and that changes everything. The first strike at precisely 0400 local time, the first Krell formation entered human range. The swarm came fast. Thousands of black insectoid ships flying without formation, powered by living reactors that pulsed with red light. Captain Voss raised her hand. Weapons free. A hum filled the Vanguard as power surged through its systems. The massive railguns locked onto targets miles away. Fire. The night exploded. Thousands of plasma lances ripped across space, cutting through Krell ships like blades of sunlight. Each shot found its mark, guided by AI targeting and human instinct. The Krell screamed through the comm channels, a mix of static and animal rage. Their ships burst apart, raining debris into the void. Within the first minute, 500 Krell ships were gone, but more kept coming. The swarm's fury. The Krell retaliated. Their ships vomited streams of acid green energy, washing over human shields. The void shimmered with light as Terran vessels held their ground, countering every blast with disciplined fire. Forward shields at 82%. Rotating formations Delta and Gamma. The Terran fleet moved like clockwork, damaged ships falling back while fresh ones advanced. Every move was planned, every response exact. But the Krell were endless. Their living ships repaired themselves mid-battle, regenerating broken hulls. Some even latched onto human destroyers trying to eat their way through the metal. They're boarding us, shouted an officer. Captain Voss's voice stayed calm. Activate pulse defense grid. A flash of blue light erupted around the Vanguard. The boarding organisms turned to ash before they reached the hull. Status? She asked, shields holding. Enemy adapting, Voss narrowed her eyes. Then we adapt faster. The drop zone, meanwhile, on the ground, the battle had reached the Virexi capital. The Krell swarms that had landed earlier were regrouping, preparing another massive assault on the city. Terran Marines and Virexi soldiers worked side by side, fortifying the perimeter. Marines, check power cells, shouted a sergeant, his voice echoing through the smoke. Keep your lines clean. No one breaks formation! Terran, the young Virexi soldier, crouched beside one of the humans. The Marine was twice his size, covered in black armor with glowing blue lines running across it. What are we waiting for? Terran asked. The Marine smiled behind his visor. For the captain to say go. Above them, the sky cracked open again. Dozens of burning Krell dropships entering atmosphere. The Marine raised his weapon. There it is. Vanguard to all ground teams. Voss's voice came through the comms. Defend the capital. We'll clear orbit. The battle for Virex was about to begin again. The turning point back in orbit, the Krell began to push harder. Their main carriers, massive bioships the size of moons, entered range, launching endless waves of drones. Captain, enemy numbers are overwhelming, said her second officer. We can't outgun them forever. Voss's expression didn't change. She looked at the holographic projection, then at the shimmering blue planet below. If we fall, Virex burns, she said softly. Then she gave the order no one expected. Prepare the hammer protocol. The crew turned toward her in silence. The hammer protocol was forbidden, a Terran superweapon that could destroy entire fleets, and maybe the planet below. Ma'am, it's not stable, the engineer warned. Neither are the Krell, Voss replied. Begin countdown. The hammer falls deep within the Vanguard. The energy core roared to life. Blue arcs of power flashed along the ship's spine, charging the orbital cannon. Every Krell ship in range began to turn toward the source, sensing danger. Captain, weapon at 90%. Fire. The beam that followed was not a weapon. It was a sunrise. A single column of blue-white light pierced the darkness, striking through the Krell armada. The energy ripple spread outward like a wave, slicing through hundreds of ships at once. The void went silent. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then the Krell fleet, and what was left of it, began to scatter. Enemy retreat detected, shouted the tactical officer. We got them. The bridge erupted with cheers, but Captain Voss didn't smile. She stared at the readings. The swarm's not gone, she said. They're regrouping. Her eyes darkened. They'll be back and with more. The moment of hope on the surface, the humans and Virexi saw the explosion light up the sky. The ground shook as debris rained down from orbit. Terran looked up in awe. They did it. Beside him, the Marine lowered his weapon. That's just round one, kid. In the command center, Chancellor Ralvin finally exhaled, his voice quiet but full of emotion. They saved us again, but deep down he knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The Krell would never forgive this defeat. And now that humanity had revealed its power, the entire galaxy would take notice. End of Part 3. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy had seen their fire. But even as Virex celebrated, the darkness beyond the stars began to move again. The Krell were not beaten. They were angry, and the real war had just begun. The battle was over. But victory never felt so heavy. The skies above Virex Prime were silent now. No more fire, no more explosions. The black wreckage of Krell ships drifted in orbit like floating tombstones. Down below, smoke covered the land. Cities were broken. Mountains were scarred, and yet, for the first time in years, the Krell were gone. After the fire-high Chancellor Ralvin stood at the edge of the command balcony, staring at the ruined skyline of his capital. What once had been shining towers and blue gardens was now ash and twisted steel. He could still smell the smoke, the melted stone, and something else. Loss. Behind him, General Thel approached quietly. We've stopped counting bodies, he said. Too many. Ralvin didn't turn. And the humans? They're still out there, Thel replied. Helping. Fixing what they can. The Chancellor nodded slowly. They saved us. But they bled for it, too. A broken fleet in orbit, the Terran 7th Fleet was repairing. Several ships floated dark and silent, hulls cracked and engines dead. Others glowed faintly as drones and engineers worked to restore power. On the flagship Vanguard, the corridors were quiet except for the soft hum of medical machines. Captain Mara Voss walked through the infirmary, her steps slow. Every bed was filled. Some of her crew would never see Earth again. As she stopped beside one of the beds, a young pilot looked up at her, his eyes tired but still burning with pride. Did we win, ma'am? He whispered. Voss managed a small smile. Yes, you made sure of it. He smiled faintly, then closed his eyes. His monitor went silent. The nurse didn't speak. She just lowered her head. Captain Voss stood there for a moment, then whispered, Rest, pilot. You did your duty. She turned away, her eyes hard again, her heart breaking quietly inside her chest. The meeting later that day, a transmission came from Virex Command. Chancellor Ralvin requested an in-person meeting. When Voss arrived, the alien city was barely standing. Columns of smoke rose like ghosts. Soldiers cleared rubble while survivors gathered around makeshift tents. As she entered the ruined council hall, every Virexi soldier saluted silently. They had never seen humans before the battle, and now they looked at them with awe. Ralvin stepped forward, his voice steady but soft. "Captain Voss, on behalf of every Virexi, I thank you. You saved our people." Voss shook her head. "We saved each other." The Chancellor studied her for a moment. "Your fleet. They paid a terrible price," she nodded. "We always do." There was a long pause between them. Two leaders from different worlds united by the same burden. "Why?" Ralvin finally asked. "You could have stayed away. No one would have blamed you." Voss looked out at the city beyond the cracked walls. "Because we know what it's like to send a call for help and hear nothing but silence." Her voice lowered. "Once long ago, one of our colonies begged for aid. No one came. By the time we arrived, the world was dead. We swore that day, if someone called for help again." The galaxy had gone quiet after the Battle of Virex. The Krell retreat had been total. Their ships shattered, their hives burned. And yet, the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like the pause between storms. The rumors begin on distant worlds. Whispers spread faster than light. They came out of nowhere. The humans destroyed an entire Krell armada. An extinct race returned, stronger than ever. Across the galaxy, leaders of alien empires gathered in secret. They studied battle recordings, terrified and fascinated. The footage showed human warships, black, silent, moving with purpose. No banners, no broadcasts, just precision and destruction. In one clip, a human captain's voice echoed over comms. "Hold your line. We do not run, ever." To the aliens, that sentence alone carried more fear than any weapon. Virex, a planet in recovery months, passed. The Virexi rebuilt their world, one city at a time. Terran engineers still worked beside them, quiet, efficient, rarely speaking about themselves. But something strange was becoming clear. No one knew where the humans truly came from. Their homeworld was a secret. Their technology, decades ahead of anything known. And yet they asked for nothing in return. No land, no tribute, no control. They simply helped and left. It made the galaxy curious and afraid. A visit from the Terrans one day, High Chancellor Ralvin received a message marked Priority 1. The sender, Fleet Command, Terran Alliance. The request, private audience. When he entered the meeting hall, he found Captain Mara Voss waiting, the same woman who had saved their world. She looked tired, but focused. Her uniform was dark gray, marked with the insignia of the 7th Fleet. "Captain Voss," Ralvin greeted. "You honor us again." "Chancellor," she nodded. "I came because you deserve to know the truth." Ralvin frowned. "The truth?" She looked out through the window, the rebuilt city glowing beneath the pale sun. "You've seen what we can do," she said quietly, "but you don't know why we fight the way we do." The hidden history Voss placed a small device on the table. A holographic image flickered to life. A view of Earth, blue and beautiful, then slowly burning under fire. "Our home," she said softly, "once before the Great Silence." Ralvin's eyes widened. "You mean Earth was destroyed?" She nodded. "Almost. Centuries ago, the Krell came for us too. We fought them and we won, but the cost was everything. Billions died. Cities turned to ash. The Terran Alliance was born from the ruins." She paused, her eyes distant. "We rebuilt in the dark while the galaxy thought we were gone. We learned. We evolved. We built fleets not to conquer, but to make sure no one would ever feel what we did again." Ralvin spoke softly, almost to himself. "That's why you came. You couldn't ignore another distress call." "Yes," she said. "Because once, no one answered ours." The fear of the council word of the Terran fleet's return reached the Galactic Council, a coalition of ancient races who once ruled the stars. In the council chamber, voices clashed. "The humans are dangerous," shouted one delegate. "Their weapons are beyond regulation." "They destroyed the Krell," another argued. "We should thank them." An elder of the Varnak species leaned forward, his eyes glowing. You fools. The Krell were unstoppable for centuries, until the humans returned. You think they stopped them for us? The chamber fell silent. The elder hissed. No. They stopped them because it reminded them of something they lost. The others shifted uneasily. Fear was growing, fear of a species that fought with rage, but showed mercy when they didn't have to. The return signal back on Virex. Captain Voss received a transmission marked Echo Protocol. Her expression darkened as she read it. Ralvin noticed. What is it? Voss hesitated. Then with a heavy breath she said, another signal. A distress call from a system on the far edge of the Orion arm. Ralvin frowned. The Krell? She shook her head slowly. No, something worse. The hologram displayed an image, a planet shrouded in black mist, its surface flickering with strange energy signatures. Unknown life forms, she said. Not Krell, not any race we've catalogued. Ralvin's spine stiffened. Will you answer the call again? Voss looked at the stars beyond the window. We always do. The shadow within. But something else was happening inside the Terran Alliance. Behind closed doors in the deep chambers of Fleet Command, admirals whispered of the protocol, a hidden operation designed to prepare humanity for a war the galaxy wasn't ready for, a war that wasn't against aliens, but against something older, something that had destroyed worlds long before the Krell ever existed. Captain Voss had seen fragments of that truth, coded in old transmissions, marked Classified Origin Project. Whenever she asked, Command would give the same reply. Focus on the mission, Captain. Humanity's return must remain controlled. But she couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't telling her everything. The gift before the humans departed. Ralvin met Voss one last time. He handed her a crystal sphere, glowing softly with blue light. It's a memory core, he said. It holds the names of every Virexi who fell. Take it with you, so they won't be forgotten among the stars. Voss accepted it quietly. And this, she said, holding out a small metal badge, the insignia of the Terran Alliance. Ralvin looked confused. It's a promise, she said. If you ever face the dark again, show that symbol. Someone will come. The departure when the Terran fleet rose into the sky, every Virexi watched. The engines ignited in silence, leaving trails of blue light across the dawn. Children waved. Soldiers saluted. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Ralvin watched from the command tower, whispering softly, They are not gods. But they fight like they've seen heaven fall. And as the last human ship disappeared into the stars, he felt both hope and fear. Hope that they would return when needed. Fear that one day the galaxy might become the enemy they would have to face. The final transmission. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Voss stood before the main screen. The distress signal pulsed again, weak and distant. Her first officer turned to her. Coordinates locked, Captain. Orders? She stared at the signal for a long moment. Then her voice was calm, steady, the voice of someone who had already chosen her path long ago. Set course for the unknown system. Engage warp. The stars stretched into lines. The fleet vanished into the dark. Somewhere beyond known space, another world was crying for help. And once again, humanity was coming. Space was silent again. But silence never meant peace. It meant waiting, watching, listening. The Terran fleet drifted through the void. 1,000 engines glowing faintly blue, cutting through darkness like ghosts. At the heart of the fleet, the flagship Vanguard carried a single mission. Find the source of the distress signal. Captain Mara Voss stood before the main viewport, eyes locked on the endless stars. Her reflection in the glass looked older than she remembered, more war than woman now. Signal origin confirmed, her navigator reported. Coordinates locked. System designation Epsilon 9. No known colonies. Bring us in slow, Voss said. Keep all sensors active. I don't want any surprises. The black planet, when the fleet dropped out of warp, every screen flickered. Before them hung a dying star, small, red, trembling, and one planet orbiting it like a scar. The planet was black. Not just dark. Black, absorbing light. No reflection, no atmosphere visible. It's like the surface eats the light, whispered the science officer. No signal came from it now. Only silence, Voss frowned. Scan for life. Negative, came the reply. No biosigns, no energy output, but there's structure. Structure? Massive, artificial, buried under the crust. A chill ran down Voss's spine. Prep a recon team, she ordered. We're going down. Descent into darkness. The shuttle cut through the black mist as if flying through smoke. Inside, 5 soldiers sat in silence. The only sound was their breathing and the soft hum of the engines. When they broke through the haze, they saw it, a city of black stone, half buried in ash. Towers curved upward like ribs, no wind, no movement, only silence. As they landed, dust swirled slowly around them. The ground was smooth, almost glassy. Captain, said Lieutenant Karev, checking his scanner. No life, but I'm reading residual energy, deep underground. Voss nodded. Let's move. They advanced carefully, rifles raised. Flashlights cutting thin paths through the dark. The vault at. The center of the ruins stood a massive gate, 10 stories tall, carved with symbols that no one recognized. As they approached, the gate pulsed faintly. Responding to their lights, Captain, Karev said slowly. It's reacting to us. Voss stepped closer. The air felt heavier, thicker, almost alive, and then the symbols began to shift. The gate opened with a low, rumbling groan. Inside, the walls glowed faint blue, like veins under skin. They stepped into a vast chamber, and at its center stood a single device, floating, spinning slowly, humming softly, a beacon. Voss approached it cautiously. Is this what sent the signal? The engineer scanned it. Yes, but the signal isn't local. It's repeating something. Voss frowned. Repeating what? The engineer hesitated, then turned the translator screen toward her. The words appeared one by one. We built them. We lost control. Run. The awakening. Before anyone could react, the entire chamber trembled. The walls rippled like liquid metal. Captain Energy Spike, shouted Karev. It's activating. Blue light surged across the floor. The beacon flared, sending a shockwave through the air. The soldiers were thrown back as the lights of their helmets flickered. And then, whispers filled the air, human voices, distorted, broken.